Hi there, I'm Eshaan Mani, president of the iWRITE Youth Club, and today I am super excited to speak with Jessica Vitalis in our latest installment of the iWRITE exclusive author series. Miss Vitalis' debut novel, The Wolf's Curse, is available now, and her second novel, The Rabbit's Gift, will be released on October 25th, 2022. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's jump right in. And the first question is tell me more about your first foray into writing as a kid. How did it kind of impact your future writings, and what was it like?
Sure. So I wrote a lot as a kid. I didn't have the very best childhood, so I turned to books and writing to sort of escape that. And I started to notice that my writing always got a lot of praise, and that was something I didn't get a lot of. So that kind of planted a seed in my mind that maybe there was something with this writing thing that I was good at. But I didn't really know, this is going to sound crazy, but I didn't really know that real people wrote books. So it never occurred to me that this was something that I could do for a career. I was growing up way back before computers in the time of dinosaurs. And so I guess I just thought books appeared on library shelves. I don't know, but I just wrote because I love to write. And so in sixth grade, I wrote a poem about friendship, and one of my teachers had me put it on a poster board and hung it in the wall. And so that was really a huge accolade for me and something I was proud of. And then when I graduated high school, although I had moved on to a different city, I found out that that teacher spoke at the commencement, and he had actually read the poem that I wrote as part of the commencement ceremony. So again, it was that sense that maybe there was something I was good at when it came to writing. And then the real light bulb moment happened for me in university when I was taking a writing course. It was not a creative writing course, it was a business writing course. But the professor asked me to write an essay for his college textbook on persuasive writing. And that was really and truly the first time that I had ever met a real writer, or that it occurred to me that this was something that other people did and maybe something I could do. So that really planted the seeds for me deep in my chest that maybe someday writing an actual book was something that I could do.
And I know that you attended Columbia Business School. You know, you were on a totally different professional track as well. So, how did your experience at Columbia, and I think you had mentioned in your bio on your site, the creativity and personal mastery class, how did that shape your writing journey?
Yeah, well, that really changed the trajectory of my whole life, because when you go to business school, you expect to graduate and have a career, obviously, in business. And that's what I was planning to do. But I found this course called Creativity and Personal Mastery. It was in the marketing department, and it didn't seem to have anything at all to do with business, but it sounded fascinating. It was all about sort of discovering who you were as a person and how to live your best life. And as soon as I saw the course description, I just knew that it was something I wanted to be a part of. And you had to write an essay and get accepted to get into the class, because the professor really wanted people that were passionate about embarking on this journey. And one of the assignments in the class was to design our ideal job. And I sat down and I kept trying to design these ideal jobs. And we had to design like a full day, exactly what your life would look like, what you would have for breakfast, how every single minute of the day would be spent. And every time I tried to write this assignment and put in this sort of corporate life that I was headed toward, it just didn't feel good to me. It wasn't something that I was really, really excited about. And so finally, I put all of that aside and I wrote my ideal life as an author. And I was so excited and so jazzed when that happened that something just clicked for me. And I realized that I was on the wrong path, and that somehow, some way, writing books was something that I had to figure out how to pursue.
That's incredible. I mean, just one moment, one assignment can change everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I hope that someday I would have had the courage to admit to myself that that was my passion. But, I was so far down this other career path that I don't know if it would have happened.
And what would you say your mission or your goal is as a writer?
I always say that first and foremost, I want to write entertaining books, but I also want to write books that are going to make readers ask questions about themselves and about the world around them.
Hmm. And what do you value more in your writing? Is it more entertainment for the reader, as you mentioned, or is it more of the education, kind of getting them to ask questions, even maybe learning things, taking things away from your books?
Yeah, well, I think for me, they go hand in hand. I think readers don't necessarily want to be educated when they read a book. So I worry about that term. But to me, the very best books are the books that are really fun, that you get lost in, that it's a cool new world, but at the same time, the books that leave you thinking. So I don't know if I could ever separate the two out. To me, the book has to have both of those elements to be compelling.
So, what is your favorite underappreciated novel? It can be, for whatever audience, but is there a book that you really think deserves more praise than it gets?
I think that's a tough one, but I'm going to say The Troubled Girls of Dragomir Academy by Anne Ursu. It came out last fall, and I haven't seen it around as much as I thought I would. The book is absolutely brilliant. It's the story of It's a fantasy story, of course, because I love my historical fantasy. It's the story of a girl who is living in this very unique fantasy world, and her country is being sort of haunted by this monstrous thing. I think they call it the dread. And so on the surface, that's what the story is about, but it's sort of an allegory. And really what the author wants you to be thinking about is something else entirely. And I'm not going to share what that is, because I think discovering it is part of the adventure of that story. But I hope everybody goes out and reads that book, because I just absolutely love it. Well, Anne Ursu is just a brilliant fantasy writer. First of all, her writing is always absolutely gorgeous. And then I'm also really passionate about the themes in that particular novel. So I think the combination of the two just captured my heart.
Super. So, where did you find the inspiration, pardon me, for your first book, The Wolf's Curse?
That was an interesting one. I was actually standing in front of my bookshelves one day, and I had written several novels, none of which got an agent or got published. Actually, I might have had an agent by that point, but I still didn't have a publishing deal. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to write next. And I started just pulling books off of the shelf, searching for inspiration, trying to come up with an idea that felt unique, and maybe also just building on something that had been done before, so I wasn't reinventing the wheel. And the book that I pulled out was The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, which is, have you read that book?
Yes, it's great.
It's brilliant, right? So it's a heartbreaking, gorgeous story set in Nazi Germany. It's about a girl who goes to live with a foster family. But what's really so brilliant about the story is that it's narrated by death. So as soon as I picked that book up, I had another light bulb moment in my life. And I just thought, wow, writing a story with death as a narrator for the middle grade market would be awesome. And what would that look like? And then my wheels started turning, and I started thinking about the Grim Reaper mythology that we tend to fall back on when we're writing about death, particularly for children, and how frightening that is, with the shrouded figure carrying the scythe, and wanting to reinvent that. And so I ended up making death a woman, and I ended up making death a wolf. And so I just started out to explore what that would look like in the middle grade world.
What to you is the hardest part of the writing process?
I think for me, well, two things. One, coming up with story ideas is actually really hard for me. I'm not one of those people that has just a million ideas floating all the time and can't decide what to write next. I really have to work quite hard to come up with something that I'm passionate enough about to spend a long time with. So that's one. I think the other thing for me is, because I love words and I love writing so much, that I love everything I write, and I have a really hard time figuring out when it's strong enough and where the weaknesses are. Not to say that I think I'm a brilliant writer, it's just that I don't think I'm very objective about my writing. And so I really had to work hard to find critique partners and beta readers who give me that really honest feedback of, here's what's working, here's what's not so much.
Do you
Yeah.
read your book reviews? And how do you deal with like the bad or good ones? How do you kind of take that in terms of feedback?
Yeah, that is a great question. So what I did for The Wolf's Curse is I read all of the book reviews up until the book got published. And I stopped reading them after that, because I felt like the book was out in the world. Reading them beforehand sort of gave me a sense of maybe what kind of reception the book would get and whether or not the book was accomplishing what I thought it would accomplish. But then after it was out in the world, it was out of my hands. There was nothing I could do about it. And so I just stopped reading them. In terms of the reviews themselves, I've been really lucky. I feel like I didn't encounter a lot of bad reviews. So the one or two that I remember reading really kind of just rolled off my shoulders, because I know as a reader, I don't always love every book, and I don't always love every book that other people love. So I really didn't take it personally when it just didn't land with somebody, because it just wasn't a book that was written for them, and that's okay.
Sure, right. And just looking at the publishing process, like overall, I mean, not just limited to writing, but coming from querying to getting an agent to all the way to seeing your book on the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most gratifying moment for you? I know we talked about the most challenging part of the writing process, and I'm sure getting an agent probably was not at all easy. But at the end of all of that, what's the most gratifying part?
I think for me, the moment I got the book deal was kind of a life-changing moment for me, because I had worked for 13 years to get to that point. And my writing started off so bad that I actually got a feedback from an agent early on that my writing was so bad that I had no business writing, that I didn't know what a sentence was, that I didn't know what a paragraph was. And I didn't give up, and I kept going, and I kept facing rejection after rejection for more than 13 years. So getting to the point where somebody in traditional publishing acknowledged and validated my work was really, really a big moment for me.
What are some lessons that you've learned from your debut novel and writing the second?
I think, let's see, lessons learned are, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, the only way to be a writer is to just button chairs, what we call it. You just got to sit down and write. And some days that's easy, and some days it's not. And I try not to get too caught up in writer's block. I don't know that there's really such a thing. Some days writing comes easier, some days it doesn't, but it's just about trusting the process and knowing that even if what you're writing is complete junk, that you can come back and fix it later. And that some days you just need to walk away from your computer, and that's okay too. And so it's just becoming more intuitive with my writing, I think.
That's true. Yeah, I think it's important to know when to write as well, right? I mean, some people say write every single day. If you don't feel up to it a certain day, you don't want to be writing. Totally.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't always have that luxury. I mean, when you're on deadline, if you get past pages, you get 72 hours and the work has to be done. But by and large, I do think it's important to sort of follow your instincts when it comes to writing.
And what do you hope that readers take away from The Rabbit's Gift? I mean, it's going to be releasing pretty soon. In the run up, I've seen some great promo posts. But what do you think is the big message at the end of the book that you think folks should take away?
Well, again, I try to stay away from really big messages, but I hope, well, first and foremost, of course, I hope readers will really enjoy this very unique fantasy world that I've set up. It takes place in a world where babies are actually grown in cabbage-like plants and they're delivered by rabbits. So it's a lot of fun, but I also ask a lot of really big questions. So it's a dual point of view, and there's a rabbit and there's a girl, and they both make some really big mistakes that could have catastrophic consequences for the whole country. And each of them thinks that they're the hero of their own story. And of course, they think the other individual is the villain. So I hope readers will walk away thinking about how sometimes we other everybody else or people that we don't understand. And there are a lot of different points of view, and that the more we can understand and hopefully work together, maybe we can all work to make the world a better place. So I think that's one of the big messages, is just thinking about heroes and villains and how we frame people. And the other big exploration in the story from my perspective is really the interaction between man and nature, and understanding how our personal beliefs and our scientific advances impact the environment and the earth and the animals around us.
Very true. I was going to ask about that, so I'm glad that we touched on that. Alrighty, so I guess just to wrap up, what is your advice to any up and coming authors, some kids who are just getting into writing short stories?
Well, my advice after writing for 13 years and not getting a publishing deal is to never give up. No matter what, don't let anybody else tell you that you're not good enough, and don't let you talk yourself out of following your dreams, because the only way that your dream might ever come true is if you keep following it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Miss Vitalis. It's really been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to check out The Wolf's Curse and stay tuned for The Rabbit's Gift coming out again on October 25th, 2022. I'm Eshaan, signing off. See you in the next one, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Bye!